Okay, so here we go. We are off to our next presenter. As we know, earlier this year, Amolyt was sold to Alexion AstraZeneca. And we're going to have them present today, and they are they originated the Calypso trial. So that trial still is in its blinded phase, so we won't be able to answer any questions around the Calypso trial to follow the rules and regulations of everything. But we wanted to talk to you a little bit about, how the transition from Amolyt to a new organization. So we're really excited to have a new presenter here. Ms. Wendy Erler is the Vice President of Patient Experience, Patient Advocacy, and Patient Insights at Alexion AstraZeneca Rare Disease. So please welcome to the stage Ms. Wendy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to everyone that's joining online. As you heard, my name is Wendy. It's a complete privilege and honor to be here. I really want to start with thanking the amazing people I got to spend time with last night, and to each of you who shared your story and what your hopes and dreams are for living with this condition. I really want you to hear how much that means to us. For those of us that are here that aren't living with hypopara or are not a caregiver, being able to understand and listen to what actually matters is going to change the way this condition is treated. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I really want to thank, obviously, the association for creating such an important venue. When we talk about the definition of community, and I'm going to read it, it's a group of people living with a particular characteristic in common, a feeling of fellowship, and an immediate connection to others. And I think we can all agree that happens in this room and with the community online, and it's thanks to Patty and Michelle for creating such an environment. When I look at this, I don't know what it means to each and every one of you, but this is hope. There are a lot of rare diseases where they don't have a tent card like this that shows the number of companies and researchers and physicians committed to a condition. So this is pretty exciting. We're really excited to meet you. I lead the patient experience team at Alexion, and you'll hear a little bit about who we are, how we work, and our why, and that's the purpose of this time today. I know most of you know Amolyt and Blandine and Nicole who are here. We are so thrilled that they've come into the Alexion fold. Our goal is to really assure you that we're not looking to make changes in how this program moves forward and how we serve this community. We're here to amplify and accelerate the opportunity, and we look to each and every one of you to make sure we're doing the right job. This is who we are at Alexion. So we're inspired every day. And when I talk about this, it doesn't mean we're just saying it and we're standing on the stage. You look at the people on the right-hand side of this slide, and Kendall, who's living with a condition called neurofibromatosis type 1. This is Kendall swimming in her backyard pool. Her mom is a fierce advocate for NF1. NF1 is a really challenging condition to grow up with. A lot of the patients have tumors that show up on their skin, and they're called cutaneous fibromas, and they can have 100 removed at a time. And so it's a really challenging condition. Kim in the middle is living with a condition called NMOSD. NMOSD is a rare neurological condition. I had a patient tell me once that she was visiting her grandmother in an apartment building in New York City, and they were on the 34th floor. And they walked out of their apartment and pushed the elevator button. And when she got to the lobby, she'd had her first attack from NMOSD. She didn't know what she had at the time, but she was paralyzed and couldn't see. So in that elevator ride, that was how fast it came on. Alyssa on the left is living with a condition called AHUS, and Alyssa's started connecting with Alexion, and we got to know her as a young girl. Her dad started a patient advocacy group, and today she's very involved in advocating for the community. For over 3 decades, more than 30 years, Alexion has been focused on rare disease. We really think about patients and their caregivers. We say that they're center of everything we do, and how do we demonstrate that is what I want to share with you today. but we're really inspired to think differently about science, about the research process, and all of this is focused on better outcomes for families. Our mission is driven by a real, sincere understanding that each and every person with a rare disease is unique and their experience is unique. So by the numbers, I mentioned for over 30 years we've been focused on rare disease. Why does that matter, or why should you care? Rare diseases in the ecosystem of being diagnosed and then research processes is very different than more common, bigger population conditions. So having expertise and focus in rare is actually really important and advantageous. When you think about starting a rare disease clinical trial, patients are few, experts are few. You have to think from a global perspective. There are very few centers of excellence. We have expertise in mobilizing those resources. We also have expertise in bringing natural history and real-world evidence to the table from a rare disease perspective. We have a bold ambition to serve patients in 100 countries by the end of 2030. How can we do that? Not to confuse things, but to add another name. Alexion was acquired by a big company called AstraZeneca about 3 years ago. With the backing of AstraZeneca and being part of this bigger organization, we are able to think about global from a whole new perspective and being in over 100 countries by 2030. Right now, we are helping patients in about 70 countries. We have about 5,000 employees around the globe focused on rare. Maybe, Blandine, we can say 5,040 since we brought Amolyt into the fold. We have 6 approved medicines for 7 different rare diseases. And those rare diseases run the gamut from neurology to rare bone to hematology and nephrology. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we work and really hope that what you can see from us is a demonstration that we are truly invested in building trusted, long-term, transparent relationships with the communities within which we work. We believe creating a partnership with patients, and when I say patients, we mean patients and caregivers, must be demonstrated by how we engage. So we started a project about 6 years ago to define patient centricity. It's a big buzzword, I'm sure you've heard it, but we wanted everyone within our organization to be aligned to what that means. And it's rooted in partnering to deeply understand the experiences that we hear from patients, and most importantly, incorporating those insights into decision-making at every stage, from drug discovery, so the very early phases, through commercialization or late-stage drug development. We think about this from a perspective of 4 key principles. We want to be curious. We have to be willing to ask, learn, and plan with all of you at the center of what we do. And deliberative, meaningfully engaged. This isn't just about reading about a story or seeing a video. That's all important, but how do we meaningfully also engage and set the stage to listen and learn? We co-create, so we have a lot of different ways we involve patients and caregivers from all through drug development to develop innovative strategies and solutions all along what we call the journey, which is that pre-diagnosis experience all the way through. And then we want to generate valuable impact for patients and all of our stakeholders, including being able to show measurable metrics so that we are accountable for doing this in the right way. So I've said patients are at the center of what we do. Why? It sounds so obvious. I don't think anybody is going to stand up and say patient centricity doesn't matter. But why is instilling commitment-driven behaviors and actions really important and the foundation for building trust? We want to set the standard for patient centricity. We want everybody working on behalf of hypoparathyroidism to be working for the same goals, enhancing that this is a journey, and within pharma, we have to shift our mindset. Listening to patients and acting on the insights is critical, and establishing the cultural norm of how we work within our organization really comes from being championed at the top. So who are we, and how do we work together? We listen first. And I'll talk about a few of the frameworks we've built to show this. We work to understand patient needs to improve patient centricity in clinical trials. This includes bringing in patient input to protocol design all the way through to understanding the burden of participating in a study. To any of you that is in a clinical trial and your family members, thank you. It is so important for you to be recognized as driving scientific advancement, no matter the outcome. Your time, your commitment, your attention to detail in the study is what's going to drive change for everyone that comes behind you diagnosed with this condition. We deploy tools for insight and rapid response to meet stakeholder needs. Some of that's diagnostics, some of that is better testing, some of that is better disease understanding. So different ways that happens. We're really committed to increasing partnership with patient advocacy organizations and community so that we understand what you need. This isn't about us pushing what we think is important out. It's really about bringing your voice in and recognizing that patient advocacy organizations operate independently and represent each and every patient. So we want to respect that and work together. So to enable patient centricity, and this is an area that I'm really, really proud of when thinking about who is Alexion, we work for a company. We have responsibility for physicians and reimbursers or payers, regulatory groups, investors. We work for a business. So how do you enable patient centricity to make it real? One of the things we did is develop and implement a set of frameworks and tools to coordinate engagement so that when we bring insights in, they can be turned into data internally to be used appropriately. So for example, we built 2 dedicated patient advocacy areas of expertise. One is called STAR and one is called LEAP. STAR stands for Solutions to Accelerate Results for Patients. STAR sounded weird, so we just call it STAR. This helps us to map out what we hear from you as the patient journey or lived experience and identify those moments that matter are most critical. And I can tell you in my first meeting with Patty and Michelle, I took notes and I wrote in big bold letters, not just about calcium. And so it's really those insights that you may not hear in a scientific piece of literature, but you hear from the patient community. How do we meld the two? LEAP is something we're super proud of. I'll talk about that in a minute. All of this helps inform our drug development decision-making. We developed a program called Patient Friction Coefficient, which is about understanding the burden of participating in a trial. And on the right, and this is a little insider baseball, but I wanted to show you, we built PICO, and this is called our Patient Engagement Center of Excellence. So as any of you work with us or get to know us, our goal with PICO was really to set for our organization a way for us to ensure that anybody that engages with us at an individual level or as a patient group has what we call an exquisite experience. So we really want to make sure we're meeting your needs. If you work with us on a project for which you're contracted, we're not sending you a 40-page legal document. We're sending you a 2-page agreement that meets your needs, has clear communication, and represents what you need to know about this engagement. So that's insider baseball. That sounds like it doesn't matter, but it's all part of the way we work and how we want to make sure your experience with Alexion is. So LEAP, this is really a fun program. It stands for Learn, Evolve, Activate, Deliver for Patients. It's a behavioral simulation that all of our employees go through, starting with onboarding, new hire orientation. So within the first couple days of being an employee at our company, people are immersed in this learning experience that is visual and sensory and puts people in the middle of a patient experience. And we have several different LEAP programs, either focused on a specific disease or other areas, for example, choosing whether or not to be in a clinical trial. We do this, and if you can imagine, particularly having gone mostly virtual with these, there are things like ambulance sirens in the background, people wearing white coats, visual demonstration of what that experience likes. It takes people out of their day-to-day job and puts them in a setting of, oh wait, this is what it feels like. This is what it means. This is how I need to think about it. So all of these different functions within our company work together to ultimately deliver meaningful medicines and outcomes. But somebody working in finance every day doesn't get to come to a meeting like this. So how do we put them in that space to understand from that perspective what it feels like? We then take all of the observations that people share with us from these patient journeys and distill these insights into opportunities for impact. We have also done LEAP sessions with several of our external partners that help us deliver medicines. So think suppliers, think people that do manufacturing, because we really think it's an important way for people to share in that lived experience. Our mission is to transform the lives of people affected by rare diseases through the development and delivery of innovative medicines as well as supportive technologies. Maureen in this picture has a rare, very rare liver disease called LAL-D. She and her sister have both been diagnosed with LAL-D. They had the opportunity to participate in a clinical trial and are now young adults. Maureen's a nurse, partly because of her healthcare experience, right? She really spent a lot of time in the hospital, and that drove her to be a nurse. Her mom advocates just viciously for both of these girls. Her younger sister's in college and is navigating, how do I get infusions where I'm going to college? The learning doesn't end, so we really do spend a lot of time to understand all of these life experiences. I wanted to talk quickly about one of the terms you might have seen on the slide called patient friction coefficient. And with that program, we actually bring people in to look at what we're asking in a clinical trial, what questions need to be answered, how many visits are there, and kind of assess what we're expecting of people. I talked to someone last night who mentioned having a trial, her trial work was coordinated in one part of the country, but she had to be with her mom in the middle of the country, and how do you navigate that going back and forth? We try to answer those questions before we put a final protocol in. And if you think about it, we often enroll studies with people, let's say ages 18 to 65. Arguably, a 64-year-old is going to have a different experience than a 19-year-old, no matter the condition. So how do we think about all of those different people that are going to be in these studies and meet the needs of most on the front end? The other thing we do is really work with our clinical sites and the clinical research coordinators to look at this from the same perspective. And any question that comes in from a potential participant in on a study needs to be answered and asked and brought back to us so that together we can come up with a solution and not just make assumptions. So we're trying to drive change from that way as well. What I hope you hear is that Amolyt and Alexion are one team. We're not making any changes to the work that Amolyt was doing. We actually see this as an opportunity to even come in and do more by combining the companies and working together. We have an opportunity to really think from a global perspective how more patients can be helped in the future, how we can learn more about this very challenging condition, and how we can get to know each and every one of you. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Wendy. Who has questions for Wendy? Anything from Amolyt, Alexion, anything she presented? All right, Michelle, I think you have a few.
The only one I have on here, whoops, of course, my thing shut off on me just as I was about to speak. Is there anything about the transition that affects the drug development process?
No, actually, Amolyt did such a fantastic job of creating the early clinical trial development pathway, and so that is all ongoing and expected to move at the same pace and with the same timelines as planned from the beginning. And we do have a table. If anyone has specific questions, please come talk to us.
Absolutely. And you know, actually, Michelle and I got to go to the Gaithersburg office last week, and we met with Martha, who was amazing, and guided us through, took us into a lab The only lab I've ever seen is how to mix somebody's hair color and put this beautiful color on them. And
That might be a more important lab for some of us.
And Michelle was like all geeking out about all the lab stuff. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. But it was so nice because I believe, like, they had a little bit of people from each department come in and introduce themselves to us. And one guy in particular stuck out. He was from the IT department. And he told the group there, and some of them were like, wow. But what he does, he's the IT guy. He fixes their computers that happen. And he said, you know, we start our monthly meetings off with watching a patient's story. So we get ourselves in the right frame of why we're doing what we're doing. Even though we're fixing somebody's computer, we know at the end of the day it's for the patients. So it was like, man, alive. The culture that we experienced there for that day last week was pretty exciting. So while it was a little scary when we heard the news and people were like, oh my gosh, I'm in a trial, I'm doing, how is this all going to happen? And when, you know, it's kind of all flowing. It is flowing behind the scenes. And I have to tell you, probably for the last 3 or 4 years, we've had this amazing support right over there. Blandine has been just wonderful working with us with the Amolyt. They've included us the whole way through, you know, their journey to get to the clinical trials. So we really appreciate that, and we look forward
She's
to
not
the
going
continue.
anywhere.
But no, she's hanging around. Continued that partnership. So any other questions for?
Come
Go
in
ahead.
online. They're asking, can you speak at all to how does approval look different for rare diseases versus non-rare diseases?
So there are a lot of unique approval pathways, and I think very simply what I've seen in rare disease is the opportunity to meaningfully incorporate patient experience into the package that goes to regulators for approval is very unique. And the work that the Hypopara Association has done with the patient-focused drug development is massively important because that's what educates regulators about what's really important for this condition. So that, to me, is one of the biggest differences with rare. When you have a big population disease, you can look at numbers and you can assume how it impacts most. When you have a rare disease, that's just not the case. So the experience data is critical.
Oh, we got a question in the back.
When you were listing the age band, you went up to age 65. Most of us who are women who were surgically induced, it was in our 40s. But what if somebody's over 65? Are they too old for a trial?
No, and I was just using that as an example. We actually, this is a timely question. We have a clinical trial going on right now where the upper age limit is 90. And I talked to a gentleman this weekend and he said, how did you pick that? And I'm 95 and I want to marry my high school girlfriend. And I'm like, very good question. So what I'm going to do is go back and talk to the team about, in a situation like that where there is such a upper age limit, why did we even have one at all? And I don't have an answer, but that's an example of how we continue to take in insights and go back. This gentleman literally is reconnected with his girlfriend from 70 years ago. So it's such an incredible story. So no, there are many, many examples of trials that have a wider berth on both sides. Exactly.
Michelle?
Does Alexion offer any resources for patients who are trying to make a decision about joining a clinical trial?
We do, and if there are people in particular, so where we can have those conversations is more specifically related to our trials. We aren't able to speak to that comparative type decision making, but that's where your website and all the information you have is so much more helpful. But anyone's able to contact us at patientadvocacy@alexion.com, and we will do our best to get them to the right people.
Okay, thank you.